What's up guys, Ben here bringing another video today. This one is the second part of the Major 1 preview video. We're going to cover teams 7 through 12. I don't think this video will be as long as the part 1 because a lot of these teams, I don't think it's very complicated to talk about their struggles, but we're going to break down 2 of the teams that are in winners bracket as well as the losers bracket. I think most of these teams have a long shot to win this event, but let's break down potentially how they might do it. And honestly, for a number of these teams, I think they will be making roster changes after this event. So I will highlight some players that might be leaving the squad after Boston this weekend. So we're going to start with Minnesota, Boston, LAG, and then we'll do Thieves, Carolina, and Vegas. This is a tier list I did on Monday. So we've already done the top 6. Going to do the bottom 6 now. Let's dive in with the ROKKR. It's been an interesting road for the Minnesota ROKKR. They opened up the season by going 0-4. They lost to Vegas game 5, Optic in 4, Miami in 4, New York in 4. You see you see kind of where I'm going with this. So 0-4, and really like before the break, we're like, man, I don't know what this team. They're super underperforming. They're super disappointing. They need to blow up everything. And we talked to Lamar Accuracy on the flank this weekend, and Lamar said that after 0-4 start, I mean, he basically went back to the team and it's like, we got to think of everything we're doing. And since they've gotten back, they've only dropped 2 maps in 3 series, which I think is kind of impressive. You look at, you know, how they kind of performed. They beat Seattle game 5. They've looked really good in game 1. They're actually on a 5-game, going back to the 0-4. They're on a 5-game win streak in game 1. There's a lot to like if you are the Minnesota ROKKR right now. And there's like a lot hidden in here that I think potentially could make this ROKKR team like pretty solid. They have a number of really solid maps in their pool. That being said, there are a number of maps that like they are kind of not playing. They haven't really played Karachi Hardpoint. They have played all of the S&D maps, but you see High Rise is a possible vulnerability here as well as O2 on Subbase. So like I think there are still, as well as Invasion here too, and Skiro. So there are some weaknesses in their map pool, but there are some strong maps they should be able to get in the series, and I think be very competitive at this Major 1 event. I think it's clear though, what's going to really kind of determine this team's upside is during this stretch, Reese, Vivid, and Linta played really well. They've gotten one good series from Lamar Accuracy, but they're still waiting for a big wake to really pop off. And him and a combo of accuracy kind of make them one of the worst AR duos in the league right now. And if they have kind of the level of performance we saw in the middle of this split, I really don't know if this ROKKR team is going to go anywhere in this event, but if they play well, I see this team getting like top 6. So looking at the bracket, they have New York up first, which I actually think is kind of an interesting matchup. You know, New York is really good at search, respawn. There's opportunities there for ROKKR, so I think they can make that series very interesting. If they get past that, likely going to play Toronto for winners finals. And in classic ROKKR fashion, we saw this last year. Maybe they win both series, make the winners finals. I don't know if I'm still super confident to make grand finals after that. And if they beat New York, and let's say they drop down and they go to the top side of winners, or of losers rather, I could see them finding, you know, with LAG, maybe Miami down there, maybe Optic down there. I could see an opportunity where this team really finds a way to get an opportunity to make it to Sunday. So I just think for ROKKR, I think right now, I feel like top 8, top 6 is where they're going to place, which I think it's during the start of the season. You probably take it if you're the squad. Again, I just think the key thing for them is these 2 players. If Big Wake and Lamar show up, they're going to have a very interesting weekend. If they are kind of not there and Reese and Lins aren't frying, it could be a double first rounder for them. We'll see what happens. Let's talk about Boston next. They've been kind of another squad that I'm having a difficult time reading going this event. They are starting in losers bracket because they only had 2 wins. They had a game 5 against FaZe that went pretty deep, but FaZe definitely kind of were the stronger S&D team and able to close that out. Against Seattle, most of the maps were very close in the series, but Seattle did close it out with 3 straight. And then Boston got smoked by Thieves, but rebounded with a nice victory before the break versus Toronto. And then when they came back, unfortunately, they have been 1-2. They lost to LAG with their only map win being map win in that series being an S&D Karachi. They were able to beat Miami Heretics last week with a nice 3 straight victory after dropping map 1 Karachi. And then against New York this past weekend, it was a game 5 banger, which unfortunately New York was able to take. Unfortunately, if you're a Boston fan, New York was able to take that in round 10 in search. So my like eval, when you look at the schedules, I don't think Boston's just getting like blown away in these series. The only real stinker that they've had is the Thieves series, but they've been fairly competitive in these series, taking a map or 2 off of some of these teams. If you take a look at the map win or loss record, it kind of reflects them being like a 500, sub 500 team. They don't really have like a stellar map that they're amazing at. I guess maybe Control High Rise is the one that they're really, really good at. Terminal Hardpoint, but I think it's top teams not really going to play either of those maps. Do you take those away, and you're going to see this team play a lot of Invasion, Hardpoint, and Karachi S&D versus some of these teams. And when I watch Boston play on those maps, yeah, they have a potential to pop off, but they also have the potential to scam, and that's kind of the issue they have with Capsule and Snoop on their team. They are very prone to overchalling, making mistakes, not really playing with Priesta and Slasher, and at times it makes this team look a little discombobulated. They also have some very interesting win-loss stats as in regards to game 2 and game 3. So one to watch with these. If they don't really win one of the first couple of maps in the series, it seems like they have a tough time getting momentum in this, especially game 2. I don't really kind of ignore game 3 and game 4, but more so I think this one's very interesting to me. This one's also very interesting. The game 1 really hasn't determined a bunch for them either. They've had a bunch of 3-1s where they won first map. So I'm monitoring to see if they can turn around their search game, because I feel like that's really the X factor in all of this. Respawn, again, situational, map-wise, but they're 3-6 in search. And again, we talk about it. There's a lack of discipline on this team. You know, they get first blood in 54% of their rounds, which is really, really good, but they're only winning 70% of those, which is way below league average. And actually, it looks like they are second worst in the league at first blood win percentage across all 12 teams, which is not good. And in particular, they have a tough time winning offensive rounds in S&D, again, because they're scamming, bro. They have 21 first bloods in 44 rounds, sub 50%, but above league average. And they're only winning 61% of those rounds. That's not good enough. You cannot, in this game, give people freebies when you are getting 4v3s on offense or defense. We've talked about that time and time again. It's applied in almost every Call of Duty. This team has a tough time winning their situations. We see it with the plant win percentage. This is the issue. They blow 9 of those rounds. 55% winning your plants is unacceptable. That needs to be in the 70s or higher. You need to see this Boston team get better with the discipline in search and destroy. You see the slaying numbers in hardpoint across the board for this team, a little bit iffy, but they have some stellar players in S&D. And this is, again, with Cap and Snoop, they are effective in their play styles in some game modes. In other game modes, it gets them burned. And I can see why at times Priesta and Slasher are a little inconsistent in this game, because I feel like watching the mini map, they aren't always together. Those guys are getting exposed because they're rotating, not really getting help. The lack of discipline, I think, really hurts this team. And for me, you look at these numbers, you say, well, Slasher and Preston, he's stepping up. And I agree, they lose some ones they shouldn't lose. But I watched them play, and those guys are making the right play, and the other two are just kind of, you know, not. And I think for Boston, you're just going to have to deal with that through the season. I don't think they're at a point right now they should really make a change. I don't think a change is going to make them better. But they got to figure out how to get discipline and a system in place for the two young players in the team. If they can do that, this team could be dynamic enough to really contend. But right now, I just think their best bet in this event right now is just making a decent losers bracket run, maybe the top 6 or top 4. Because I think their draw is actually like kind of tricky. You see that they are this late match on a Friday, and they're going to play the loser of Toronto and Seattle. So automatically off the rip, like that is a tough match for Boston. Now, if they do win that, they're going to play the New York, Minnesota, or Carolina for top 6. I don't think it's going to be New York, it's going to be Minnesota or Carolina, so I think that is doable. So again, I think Boston, if they win that first series, I think they can get top 6. But are they going to beat Miami, Optic, FaZe, or LAG, dropping from winners round 2? The bottom side here, I don't really think so. I think top 6 is probably where this Boston team gets, but maybe they win and they're a little bit of run here. They get top 4, who knows? But I don't think that would be too bad of a result for a Boston team that has had a little bit of a slow start at this stage and something to build upon. But if they get dead last, I'm very curious to see what they do with this team. Maybe they do think about making a roster change, moving on from some players on this roster. All right, let's talk about LAG. You know, we started off the season watching this team go 0-2 against Toronto and New York, but I thought the New York series was winnable. I thought they could have definitely won a couple of his first few maps. Then they 3-0 Thieves, and we're like, you know, this team's turning a corner. They look pretty competitive against FaZe, even though they got 3-0'd. They won and beat Boston 3-1. At this point, we were like, this last week, we're like, okay, this LAG team's going to be winners. You know, they're decent, slaying, And then they had a real stinker last week. And now I'm not really sure what to think with this team. They look like they have a very good plan at Respawn, but they have a tough time closing out these maps. They are not a good search team. And if we take a look at their S&D stats, I'm going to highlight their rogue here. We're going to scroll over to just the general stats. Overall, my takeaway is similar to the Boston one. They do toss too many around. 75 first blood win percentage is below league average right now. They are getting a decent amount of first blood, so it's not an issue of getting 4v3s, it's an issue of executing them. They have a very low offensive win percentage, 40%. And you see, again, they're getting first bloods, 54%, but you're only winning 65% is looks like second worst in the league right now. Unacceptable. Winning 66 of your plants, 66% of your plants. Also unacceptable. Need to better execute on offense when you get numbers and win those rounds when you can get them, because on some of these maps, offense is not super easy to win. And if they do that, you see their defense numbers are pretty good. Now, they're only winning 48% of those rounds, but when they do get bloods, they are winning those rounds. So I feel like that can turn. I think maybe you want to win a few more retakes, but they're about league average on retakes right now at 26%. So it's really the offense that's an issue for LAG right now in Search. They also, interestingly enough, again, I don't want to stretch waste too much time on this, but game 1, game 3 right now, if they're not winning that, they're losing these series. Very dependent on them getting going earlier on in these series, and they've had opportunity to win some of those maps. They've just been tossing them, and when they do win early, they have a good chance in these series. I'm gonna be monitoring this stat and see where it's at after the major. I think for LAG, look, roster changes might be tricky for them, but the player that I think needs to step it up right now is Fame across the board. I think they need more from the guy that's running a full-time sub. I don't think he's giving them enough pressure, winning enough ones for them to be really successful in respawn. Yes, some other players on the team need to step up, like an Escrow Assault and S&D, but in general, for me, Fame is clearly, when you watch play, their weakest player. The plays that he makes are sketchy sometimes. He needs to step it up, but I just don't see LAG making a change this year, so they might just need to live with that. So overall for LAG, they are going to play FaZe round 1, and that's a tough draw. I don't expect them to win. And they're going to go play Thieves, which they've had the better of this matchup recently. And then they will play either Vegas, Miami, or Optic for top 8 over top 6. So I think top 8 is probably best this LAG team gets, which is not probably too bad, but not as good as I thought they could have placed last week. So we'll see how they kick on from here. All right, LA Thieves. The story with LA Thieves is hardpoint. This team cannot win hardpoints. And they, looked okay through the first week and a half, lost to closer to Seattle, 0 by FaZe, beat Boston. And I thought going to the LAG series, they might have turned a corner, and then they got slammed by LAG. And then after that, it's been real tough sledding. They got 1-3 by Toronto, 1-3 by New York, and then did beat Carolina in the game 5 this weekend. I thought that was a good one, but it was a sketchy series where they lost both hard points. And the team just cannot win hard points. If I scroll over and show you here, they're 1-10 in the game mode, 1-10, 0-5 on Karachi. Their map pool is tiny in this game mode, and it is killing them in this series that they just cannot win maps 1 and 4, because the other game modes, they have been solid. They've been decent in Search and decent in Control, but 1-10 in hardpoint is not going to cut it. They haven't won a single game 4 this year, just for frame record. And we talk a little bit about this, but if they're not getting going early in series, especially because they're not winning map 1s, they're not winning game 2s, they're going to get slammed. So this team needs to get better at hardpoint. Full stop. There's nothing else really to talk about with this team, because the other game modes are decent, but if they can't win hardpoints, they're screwed. Honestly, they're screwed. For me personally, I think this Thieves team is going to make changes after this major, and you can see from the KDs here, it's obviously a complete mess in hardpoint. No one's above a 0.9. It's wild for another Thieves team. But you see across the board, Ghosty, Cammy have really been struggling. You've gotten some decent numbers from Joe Deceives, and Afro's been their best slaying player. I'm just curious where Thieves is going to go to get last in this major, because I think you can make the case that all 4 players on this team aren't playing well, and I really don't know what direction they want to go in to try and make changes here. And man, it's going to be tough. They're going to have to play LAG likely first round, and they got to finally beat this LAG team. I don't know why Thieves has this weird issue with all the different LAG teams over the years. But if they do beat that, they're going to have to play Miami or Vegas, probably likely, or Optic. And if they somehow win that series and they get to top 6, maybe this team kicks it on. But I have no confidence right now in this squad, because they can't win hard points. Until they show me they can win hard points, I'm not picking them in any series. And I think, unfortunately, they're going to get last at this tournament. Let's move on. We're to 2 more teams that I also think are probably getting last at this tournament. We'll start with Carolina. It's been real tough sledding for this team. They've already made some roster changes. Got slammed by Miami first series, even though map 1 was pretty close. They reverse swept Vegas. They could have been 0-2, but that was a nice victory for Carolina. Doing some nice clutches on that last map, S&D Invasion. But then they went on a streak here of just getting slammed by Toronto, slammed by Optic, slammed by Minnesota. And then they had TJ in last week for that Minnesota series. And then he's going to play the rest of the stage while they work on Real's visa issues. They brought in Fellow for this weekend, and they look serviceable against FaZe and Thieves, but they lost game 5 in both series. And I think, look, I'm going to lay it out plain, and I know they've made changes, and they're kind of behind the game mode. But S&D has been a real problem for them. 0-3 on Terminal, 0-2-3 on Skid Row. They are 1-0 on Invasion, but people are just not going to play them on the map. And they're going to have to prove between High Rise, Karachi, Skid Row, and Terminal, can they win one? Because right now they're winless on all 4. 6 looks not 0-9 on those maps. Not ideal. They've looked okay, I think, in Control and Hardpoint. It's kind of map dependent. This team just got a tiny win condition. I'm going to be honest with the change for Fellow and TJ. I'm just not really sure what to think about their map pool right now, because they're going to be more under practice. They have actually just pull the trigger, unlike some other teams I thought, might have by now. And you kind of see, look, the team in their position, if you're not winning these series early, you don't have a chance. And the only, really good victory they've had all split was the reverse sweep. So it's been really tough sledding for this team, and I'm not really expecting much from them. And yeah, it's kind of tough. They've been dealing with Rail's visa issues. I think that's really interrupted their situation. He's had to play a bunch from Canada, so it's just been a real mess. And I think ROKKR had to get dropped. He just was statistically the worst player in the league. But Clay had a tough start, played good this weekend. Want to see him turn it around. They've gotten some decent contributions from TJ, and fellow stats are not listed here for some reason, but fellow didn't play particularly good this weekend. So I just don't know what to expect with this Carolina team. I just think they're going to probably not have a lot of success in the bracket if we want to take a look at who they're going to play, which is they're going to play either New York or Minnesota. And I just don't see them winning that. I think they're going to get last of this tournament, and they've got to figure out if this is the team they want. Going forward, are they going to try and pick up some of the top amateur players and sort of make more roster changes to try and get some CDL points? Because right now they're sitting on 10 and at the bottom of the league. And the other team that's sitting at the bottom with them is the Vegas Legion, and this team has actually had more missed opportunities, I think, than Carolina. They start off with a nice victory versus ROKKR, and they almost start off 2-0, but they really choked that series against Carolina. Then from there, they got to a really difficult part of their schedule. Look at this. They had to play Miami, lost 1-3. Got 3-0 by New York, almost 3-0'd Optic, but I didn't have any confidence, and we'll explain why in a second. Then they got 3-0 by FaZe, and then this past weekend as well, they lost 1-3 to Toronto. And the big issue with this Vegas team is that they cannot win controls. They just won their first control this weekend. If you cannot win your map threes, you're going to have a tough time if you go up 2-0 in a series closing out. And we've now seen that in 2 different series with this team. That's why they're getting reverse swept. And in the other game modes, they're okay, but not really a strong map other than Terminal S and D. Look at, and they're pulling, to be honest, most of the good teams are going to play, just not going to play them on the map. So they got to prove they can win on Karachi. They're currently winless on that. Win on Invasion at 2-7. A lot of work for this Vegas team to do. And I just think in general, one, I think this team is probably got to move on from Purge after the split. I don't think he's shown enough that he's a real plus in that position. I think some Challengers players are going to come in and play a little bit better. I think Dylan's been good. I think you got to keep Dylan attached around. I think Nero is solid, but maybe you want to upgrade there as well. And I've been very critical of Stanny and his play style. I don't think it's really netted them wins, so I think they do need to move on from him. So my read on this Vegas team is this is like, as we take a look at the schedule, I don't want to spend too much time talking about them because they're going to play Miami or Optic, and I really don't see them beating either team. This, like Carolina, is another team that I just don't see how they can win with the current map pool they have, the weak game modes, the weak slaying. It's just not there. This team scams, this team makes mistakes, they don't play together. I just don't see how they get it done, and I think they got to make roster changes. I think they're personally, for me, I think it's a 2-player change. So we'll see what they do after Boston, because I think they're pulling up, losing a series on Friday, and that's basically it. So yeah, that'll do it for your bottom 6 teams. Not a lot to write home about. I know it was not as long as the first video, but I don't know. I find these bottom teams kind of boring to talk about. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. Like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more. We're going to give you my bracket predictions on the next video, so make sure you take a look at that. As always, guys, we will see you on the next one.